All right, welcome back everybody to another new episode of A Whole New World with me, your host, Jacob New. As always, I hope you guys have had a fantastic week, and before we get to our amazing guest here in the studio, it is time for everybody's favorite part of the week, and that is the dad joke of the week. So here it is. What is the leading cause of dry skin? Towels.
Can we try a new dad joke? A GNEW dad joke?
I mean, it's gonna be like pizza, very cheesy.
Oh,
so
extra crusty. How you doing today, Jacob?
I'm doing good. Great to have you with us,
man.
Steven.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
your show is like legendary.
I know. That's what we aim for.
I can only be on one show right now in DFW. And I wanted to be here with you. I appreciate the invitation.
I appreciate it, and it's my honor to have you on the show today. So, for everybody on Facebook, there's Mr. Palmieri. Steve, you are a co-author of a book called Breakthrough.
Breakthrough,
right?
yes.
So, now, before we get to that, I'm kind of getting ahead. So tell us a little bit about us so we can kind of get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm 39. I'm an entrepreneur. I've had several different businesses throughout the course of growing up, but I've got a financial business I've had for over 10 years, and we help entrepreneurs improve their financial situation. We do bookkeeping, taxes, and CFO type work, but really we focus on the entrepreneur. And a big philosophy of mine is that your professional development will not far exceed your personal development. And so, you can help people with their numbers all day long, but if their numbers are jacked up, there's probably a pretty good chance they won't get their business in order until they get their mindset in order. But so
you kind of help with both ends of that too.
That philosophy kind of just trickles down through the business, right?
Okay.
And so CFO work, you can go and give people chief financial officer, review the numbers with them, help give them business advice, but you can look beyond just the numbers and say, okay, here's what the numbers look at, but what are you going to do to make yourself a better business person? What are you going to do to where, because the numbers are just a reflection of what's going on in the business. And a lot of people look at the bottom line. They're like, well, what can we cut on expenses to stay within the budget? Instead of figuring out, okay, how are we going to raise the top line? What are we going to do to bring in more business and to have the world open up to us?
Instead of, you focus on more of the what can we do to make it better instead of just taking away.
Exactly, yeah. And so, part of that is what type of a business are you trying to run? Some people, solopreneurs, one-man or two-man show, and really all they're looking to do is have a lifestyle type business, which means, hey, I want to make a couple $100,000 a year, and I want to just basically be self-employed, making a bunch of money, but that's it. It's a lifestyle. But then there's people who really want to actually build a scalable business where, hey, I'm in this thing, I'm going to keep on reinvesting into it until I get to where this thing does start clicking away and making, a scalable business money.
And so have you done entrepreneurship before the financial stuff as well?
Yeah, I've always been an entrepreneur, it seems like. So my parents were not entrepreneurs. I didn't know what it was. I just knew that I was a little off. And I'm like, oh, what's wrong with me? Well, then I realized I wasn't the one who was off. All the ones who punch clocks are off, right? But no.
I wouldn't say that you're off. You see what most people don't see then.
And so it's like, I ask, why can't it be, right?
Yeah.
And once you grow up, it can't be because I told you no, or because you've got a boss or somebody, you've got to sit within this little box. But somebody has to create that box, right? I mean, for all your listeners that are out there, and so that's kind of the way that I had always been thinking was, man, there's more out there. But yeah, I actually had some real estate, and if you get my book, I've got a little story about it. I had a bunch of rental properties when the market went down, and ended up actually taking a big financial hit with that when the market crashed. And that was really one of those pivotal moments, one of those breakthrough moments where, you go from great credit, great income, all these assets, and then it just falls apart on you. And then bad credit, no income, things are like, okay, you've got to start back from square one. And, we just keep on chugging, man, and eventually you get there.
And that I like that attitude, just I just pictured the little engine that could,
That's exactly
like,
right. Yeah,
But-
the enemy of success is quitting, basically. So as
Mhm.
long as you don't quit and you keep on dumping into yourself, and you've got to set that vision. That's really a big thing.
Yeah.
A big pivotal moment in my personal growth was reading Think and Grow Rich
Mhm.
by Napoleon
Oh,
Hill.
great book.
And it's over 100, right around 100 years old. And for your listeners who don't know of it, Napoleon Hill was actually commissioned by Andrew Carnegie, who was a
Mhm.
big giant steel magnate at the beginning of the 20th century. And Andrew
Yes.
Carnegie commissioned Napoleon Hill, who was a doctor, and he was the author of this book. He said, "Hey, look, I want to sit down with you, and I'm going to give you the keys to my success. And what I want you to do, Mr. Hill, is find a way, talk to other successful people, and put this in a way to where the average person can understand the recipes of success for the successful." And the big thing of that book was the vision. You've got to have the vision before you actually get there. And
Yeah.
that was one of the breakthrough moments when I had read that book, and I had to read it a few times because you're like, wait a minute, it
Mhm.
can't just be like, you've got to have this vision first and it comes. But
So with your vision, obviously, like, it doesn't sound like you all of a sudden were just like, poof, I know what I'm going to do. So, like, what were some, did you have any techniques or anything that you did to help you come up with that? Or is it just, like, jotting things down? Like, what did you do to get your vision?
yeah, everything builds on everything else. And so, I had been in network marketing businesses just like I know you're in. And,
Mhm.
a lot of those really successful earners, no matter which company you're in, they work on themselves. They're huge into personal
Oh, yeah.
development. Because to be successful in that industry, you have to build leaders. And you can't build
Yeah.
a leader until you become a leader yourself. And so, yeah, it's been really just a series of, I guess, I've had this burning desire inside of me to have something greater than where I currently am, right?
Mhm.
And you don't know where you're trying to go, but it's like every situation. Now, I've never been afraid to take risk.
Yeah.
That's a big thing, and I'm not afraid to take financial risk and to spend money to reinvest it in myself. And that's a big thing of it is a lot of people, they're like, oh, well, this is, it's going to cost me money. Well, it's going to cost you money not to spend money also.
Yeah.
Where are you trying to go? Are you trying to go to the top, or are you trying to
Mhm.
stay where you are?
Because if you're not spending the money to better yourself, you're accepting that you're going to be where you are for the rest of your life, essentially. And so things aren't going to get better; they're not going to get worse. It's just kind of you're kind of like investing to better yourself so that you can increase your financial gain if that's what you want, or just
Well,
leadership.
exactly. I mean, but your capacity, right? The way
Mhm.
that I look at it is your personal capacity. So the more that you listen to, the more audios, the more personal development, the more you're able to have a larger capacity of doing things and giving back.
Yeah.
And if you're just chasing the dollar, then you're. I mean, there's some people that become successful at that, but
Mhm.
the dollar isn't really what you chase. It's the dollar follows whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
And so you can either be, expanding yourself to where you've got a greater ability to attract the money through what it is that you're doing. And that's kind of what's been driving me is, hey, I want to just get better and better.
Mhm.
And that's part of this book opportunity,
Yeah.
that we're going to be talking about in a little bit as well. But how do you make yourself just so valuable? Well, you have to
Mhm.
keep on improving upon yourself.
I love it. And on that note, we're going to take a quick break. So we'll be right back, everybody. So hang on tight. All right, welcome back, everybody, to another whole new episode, returning from break. So, before we left for break, we were talking about personal growth and what people need to do or listen to, and that whole idea that you don't chase when you're words. When you are growing yourself, the money will come. It's not that you're pursuing the money, but when you're pursuing something, your vision, something that you're passionate about, and you're growing yourself, the money will come.
Right, and most people are born. Well, we're all born without money, right? And most millionaires are first generation. Yeah. This idea of passed down wealth, there is that, but the majority of the wealth is created first generation. And so, if that desire, of course, almost everybody who's chasing the success at some point, you're sick of being broke and poor and sucking, right? So at some point it's like you are saying, man, I need to make some money and I want to get the money. But as you go and as you grow and as you develop along that, you realize, okay, it's more than just chasing the money. It's chasing the thirst for becoming better. Yeah. And then, a big thing for me is realizing as a business owner and having gone through ups and downs, your team is what makes you, and the people are just as valuable as what's inside of you. If you're trying to be more than a one-man business, and if you don't really have an ability to grow people, I see this all the time. People run great businesses and they're hugely talented, but they all have the same argument. Oh, I can't find the right people, and so my question is, what are you doing as a business owner to be able to attract and grow people? If you want to run a truly great company, how can you train people that from within your company, and how can you inspire them to want to be with you and not go elsewhere? Yeah. And so, and that's kind of part of what we were saying before on the numbers. We can look at the numbers, but we can also look at, really, where are you trying to go as a business, and what is it that seems to be the cycle that you can't really break through?
And, yes, there's so many things that I do agree with you on that. An example that came to mind was just like teaching. You can't be an effective teacher if you can't inspire your kids to want to do better.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so that's my background, and so I tend to relate things back to that.
Well, crack them on the back of the wrist with some rulers. That's usually pretty effective.
We can't do that no more. So, maybe back in the day, but not now. But so we started touching on it, and you talked about like getting that breakthrough. But what are, and correct me if I'm wrong, you probably had some walls and stuff that you had as well, yes?
Of course. It's still, you never get rid of the walls. All you can do is break through one wall to be able to see the next wall. Yeah. The ability, I think, to recognize the wall is, that's a huge breakthrough right there, because you're never going to have a perfect life, and you're always going to have 4 seasons and everything, whether it's the weather or life. You're going to have spring, which is really good, and what comes after spring? Summertime. Yeah.
But I love summer.
After summertime, right. But if you're not preparing for fall and winter, then you're going to get caught off guard.
Got to be sowing those seeds.
And so you've got to, once you can understand that's the cycle of how it goes, and then you can train yourself to say, okay, you know what, let me take a deep breath. I've hit a plateau. And so I've got to just keep on consciously being aware that I'm at a plateau. How do I get myself better? How do I break past it? And I think if people can embrace that idea and have that self-awareness that you're at a wall, you're hitting a wall or a plateau, then that'll allow you to be more effective moving forward on your journey of wherever it is you're trying to go.
So when you're identifying that wall, because you're essentially just identifying your problem. What is it that I'm struggling with right now? What is keeping me back? How do you go about identifying that? I know everybody's going to have a different one, but is it like, did you just make a list of like, this is this, and like you wrote it down and you saw it, or are you talking with somebody like they're like, dude, this is your problem? Did somebody else tell you? Like, how do you go about figuring out what your problems are?
Well, usually it's not other people telling me, but usually it's me not having the answers. And I start off by saying, okay, I don't even know the right question to ask. That's when I know that I've got a problem. Well, not really a problem, but I've got an opportunity to get past that wall. Okay, so your first issue is, I can't even really verbalize what my issue is. And okay, now I recognize, so now I've got to really put some thought and concentration into it and figure out what exactly is it that I'm trying to achieve, right? And then once you can start to formulate that, And, there's a book called How to Read a Book that was written by one of the publishers of Encyclopedia Britannica many years ago, and he talks about different ways to read a book. You can skim through it, and part of it is, hey, if people are trying to read for information, a lot of times they'll skim through books, and they'll skim through multiple books to source just pieces of information and let it all kind of come together. And that's a good it's a good philosophy that passes over in really just anything in life. And it doesn't have to be necessarily reading a book, but it can be on your Facebook searching groups that are related to a certain topic or whatever the case may be. And with the internet, there's so much access to information. Oh, yeah. But first you figure out what is it that my issue is, and then figure out, okay, how do you actually figure out to ask the right questions? And once you can ask the right questions, that's when you need to figure out how to be able to do the research, and how do you find the people or the information.
What is the research that I need to be doing?
Exactly.
Is it people, or do I need to go to books? Like, what exactly am I looking for with my research?
Exactly. And, the world will deliver to you exactly what it is that you're asking for. But if you don't know what to ask for, then you have to ask yourself, okay, I need to be aware that I need to figure out what to ask for. Yeah. That way the world will at least deliver you that next step. And then once you can hone in, the ability to teach yourself is something that will make or break really in life, but as an entrepreneur, right? And all too often people just graduate school and they stop learning, so to speak. If you can teach yourself how to teach yourself, then you can figure out how to get through these breakthroughs.
And I think that's just overall, because the important point, because one complaint that I've heard from a number of different people is like, well, I got my degree, but it doesn't really apply to what we're doing, and like it's almost like out of date. So it's almost like you really need to have that, I call it problem solving, like that ability to figure out what your problem is, and then how am I going to solve it? What am I going to do to get me to get my answer to my
I mean, it comes from within inside us. I've got a college degree in business as well, but the thing is, especially now, if you're not getting something super specialized, you can get just as much information much quicker through your own research, with the internet and everything. Back when I was in college, the internet was just coming out, probably with you, around then. And so, I mean, why are you going to college, right? I'm not saying don't go to college, but I am saying don't go there. If you're going to take $100,000 in student loans to go there, you make darn sure want to know what your purpose is with that. Because if you're just kind of going there and you don't have a clue, that is a problem if you're on borrowed money. But, to your point and all that, college is not going to make you successful. You make yourself successful. Now, if college is part of that journey, then absolutely it makes sense to do that. But you've got to have a plan.
It's more about the skills you get along the way.
Exactly, which I didn't have any plan when I was in college, I'll be honest with you.
I don't think many college students do when they first get there.
In fact, I'm still trying to formulate my plan.
I like it. Hey, we all are. I'm right there with you.
So
I want to hear a little bit more about your when you wasn't like a financial meltdown, but like when you lost everything. Can you go into a little bit more about like some things that you were feeling, and like what did you do to kind of like get yourself out of it? I know we've talked about this.
Sure. I mean, certainly I had to take full ownership of where I was. I mean, I had $1.5 million worth of rental homes.
And that's hard to do. Take the ownership, man.
I'm a fighter, but I had to own. Okay, I took a risk, and I had 8 homes, my home plus a bunch of rentals, and they were leveraged, they were mortgaged. The market went down, and you've got empty homes, people leave, you've got to fill them up, and you've still got to pay for mortgages, right? And they were giving loans away like with almost no money down, and so. I had built this little time bomb, basically, and it all just, you can kind of feel when things are getting ready to fall apart, and then it falls apart. And so it's, it is, it'll build your character for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But
I'm sure you learned a lot from that, too.
Well, there is, and part of it was just the frustration, because at the time I was in the car business. I was a finance manager, and so I was dealing with finances and stuff.
And this is in addition to the real estate.
Exactly. I started selling cars while I was in college, and then got my business degree, stayed in the car business for a while, really until I started my business now where I help people with their finances. And it kind of through that, I started doing the real estate from 2005 to 2008. And so, but when, you can feel that things are just kind of sliding the wrong way. And, I had, gone through a bankruptcy, tried to reorganize all the debts, and it just didn't work out. And so there's a point where you're like, okay, you go from having great income, great credit, people want to be your best friends as far as creditors, to the next day, they're threatening to and or suing you, and it's like, okay, I mean, you loved me yesterday, and today, you're basically, I'm like, look, let me have you get in line.
What are they, teenagers?
Yeah, right. You've seen my credit report. Okay, you're not the first one trying to collect. Let's make partial payments. And the interesting thing was a lot of these creditors, they were too big to fail. They were like, no, if you can't pay us, then just don't pay us, and then we'll deal with it. And so that was really interesting, was understanding the business world.
Yeah.
And nobody's your friend there. And but they were my business partners because it takes two to create credit.
Yeah.
They gave it to me based on risk, and I took it based on risk. They loved me when I signed the paperwork, and they hated me when I couldn't pay them. And that was really an interesting eye-opener. And the fact that I didn't understand, the laws and all these things that were going on, that was a big thing that helped inspire me to really start my business. And, we are also, we're licensed to do credit repair. That was actually how I started back in 2008. And from there, added on the taxes and bookkeeping and the CFO type work. I saw and I had lived through being an entrepreneur, really where do you go to find this information? Where can you find
Google.
Exactly, right. Yeah, my college degree didn't help me out with that, so thank goodness for Daddy Google. But it is a humbling experience.
Yeah.
And, the thing is you've got to have it inside of you to know where you're going, because, people, there's going to be the haters, and people are going to look at you like you failed, and people are going to say, oh, well, you need to go out and get a job and all these things. But
people want to see you do good, just not better than them.
Exactly, exactly. And so so this is where, you've got to have a confidence in the fact that you never know how you're going to get to where you're going. And, this is a big thing that Les Brown says. It's like, you don't have to talk yourself. You don't have to know how you're going to get there. You just have to make the decision that you're going
go there, and then
right?
Figure it out as you go.
And so that's the thing, is people will tell you, or and at first you're going to have to get through all the dream stealers, the ones that that are in your hot circle, and they they laugh at you and everything like this.
Yeah.
But then at some point, then they're like, oh well, hey, I want to be your friend now because you're so much successful, and you just got to you've got to be developed enough, and this is where that reading and the self-learning comes in, to say, okay, yeah, this really sucks as a situation, but I've got to know where I'm going. Yeah. And reading success stories of people who are successful but who failed numerous times.
Oh, yeah. That's common.
It's very common, right? And so equipping yourself, it's kind of like trying to play a sports game or a board game and not having the rules to it. Okay?
Yeah.
And so, that's where just dumping in the personal development and studying, humanity and history helps to equip you with the knowledge that you need to say, okay, well, this is the rules of the ball game. If I keep on trying and I don't quit and I keep on improving myself, eventually,
perseverance wins out.
Eventually, I'll make the light bulb that works.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And next thing you know, you've got a world covered with electric lights.
Yeah.
And so that was really one of the biggest takeaways, was being able to really have the confidence inside of me. And then you also get to realize who your friends are and who's just kind of out there.
Around.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it sounds like a lot of how you get out of it is through that personal growth, that personal development, and just having that, I'm going to take a risk and I'm going to try it. And for everybody that might be different. But so for those who don't remember the first part of breaking through is first identify what your problem is. What's your wall that you're running into? What are you hitting your head against? And then you got to start doing your research. Figure out what it is that you're going to do. Personal growth. Do you need to look it up on Daddy Google, as we said earlier? I mean,
right.
So all very important. So.
And one other thing I would say is a big breakthrough was actually learning human nature, like being able to read people.
Oh yeah,
and being able to
That's
go
a
with
great skill to have.
Being able to go with my my intuition and start to go with your gut. And if you can really open up that channel, you can learn so much. And because if we go back again to just talking about finances, well, money comes from people. I mean, you've got money, you buy something at McDonald's, now McDonald's has the money, and then they buy the supplies, now the supplier has the money, but it's people that are exchanging the money. And so, what is the intentions of the people that have the money that you're trying to get? And this was also just a huge learning experience in realizing that some people have good intentions, some people don't have good intentions, and trust but verify. But how do you put yourself in a position where, number one, you're not just chasing the dollar? You're chasing the opportunities when they feel right, when they make sense. Yeah. Or if you chase an opportunity and it doesn't feel right, know that you're taking a calculated risk and know, okay, I'm taking this. It's kind of one of these weird opportunities, but I'm willing to take it because it's going to potentially get me somewhere. But if it falls apart, I understand that.
And I think a big part of differentiating that comes from really understanding and knowing what your vision is. Like you said, you have to kind of come up with your vision. So without knowing that, I don't think you can identify the problem either. But but once you know, like, I'm going here, then you can better discern, like, what it is that's beneficial, what's more risky, like you said, and might not pan out. But
that's right. Defining your why. Why do you do it? What you do? What is your purpose? And that goes back to Think and Grow Rich, where he talks about you've got to have the vision, the burning desire. And so, if you don't know what it is that you're looking for, that actually is okay as long as you're consciously aware that you don't know, right? Because then you can start to think about it, like, okay, well, what is my why? Really, what am I trying to achieve? What's inside of me? What is my purpose?
And that's where I think I like the idea of vision boards, because you can create that, you're seeing it, and then the beauty about it is you can make it and then remake it again.
I've got a vision wall at home I actually created this week.
Okay.
I've got an entire wall in my home office, and I've basically printed screenshots of websites of hugely successful people, and as I'm working on kind of retweaking my why and my branding and everything, it's like, okay, so I've got Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, Les Brown, Johnny Wimbrey. I've got all these guys up there, and I've got a bunch of folks in the financial sector, like Susie Orman, Dave Ramsey, and I've got an entire wall now in my home office. And my wife came home. I got a picture of me on the top and a picture of my wife on the top, and then all these other just pictures of website screenshots. It's like, okay, I want to get the energy, and I want it to just kind of soak in.
Yeah.
And really, what is it that I want? What am I trying to convey to the world? Who I am. Let me learn from the people who have already gone to where I'm trying to go. And so, if you want to do a vision board and you want to 10x it, do a vision wall.
Yeah, that is incredible. And I like the
beast mode.
I like the 10x rule. I love it.
Yeah.
So, all right, everybody, it is time for one last break. So we will be right back. This is Jacob New with A Whole New World, and enjoy the music. All right, welcome back, everybody, to A Whole New World. This is Jacob New, your host, and we are talking about breaking through your walls. Not literally your walls in your house, but those mental walls you might have in your brain. So, talking about vision, identifying a problem, and then doing your research to solve that problem. So, Steven. Sorry.
As long as it's not a four-letter word, it's okay.
Okay,
Steve, Steven, Steve-O.
Okay, got it.
They're all good.
I have a brother. He's Steven, but he likes to go by Steve. So it was like,
it's all good.
Yeah. So
I'll leave an answer to "Hey, you" sometimes.
Hey, okay, all right. Yeah. Me too. Because you never know who might be trying to get your attention. But,
that's right.
That's my money. Anyway.
Might even try something new.
I see what you did there.
That's right.
I like it. So we're talking about vision boards, and I noticed that one of the people that you said you had on your vision board was Les Brown. And so we know you're a co-author, and for those of you on Facebook Live, here is a copy of the book. It's titled Breakthrough. And there's Mr. Palmieri.
There's yours truly right there.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I tried.
Great job.
The zoom in button's not working right now. But anyways, so did you actually achieve that goal on your vision board by writing this book with him? And how was that writing a book?
Yeah, it just happened, right? I mean, again, the personal development, it's a lifelong journey, and I've been working on it for years and years and years, and I've known Johnny Wimbrey, who is actually the gentleman who put the book together. And Johnny Wimbrey is, very successful, has been on national TV, and he's a life coach, and he has had the good fortune of hanging out with and knowing Les Brown for many years, and Les has basically kind of mentored him and taken him under his wing, and it's amazing, and I've seen people, and but it's like, if you want to take somebody's opinion, you have to take their lifestyle, and so you want to follow people who truly are successful. But then, what is success? People who are building other leaders, doing it right. Not just people who are rich, but people who are rich at the service of others, not at the expense of others. And that's what I see in Johnny. He's really looking. He's become successful by helping other people become successful. And he had put out this opportunity last year to basically co-author this book, and I knew that about 8 years ago he co-authored one with Jim Rohn, which I was like, wow, that's really cool.
I'm so jealous.
And so I actually just saw it on social media. I'd followed Johnny, and he had, hey, come in and you can write a chapter in his book and be with me and Nick Halick and Les Brown. As soon as I saw it, I was like, okay, I've got to figure this out, how to make this work. And so I figured it out. I made it work. And, the book Breakthrough has got about 20 folks like me who are co-authors.
Okay.
And it's about our breakthroughs. What is it that got us to where we are, and the journeys that we've been through. And it's really a powerful book, because if your listeners are trying to figure out what's going on, it's full of stories of all sorts of different types of stories of people who have been through every hardship you can imagine.
Chances are, if everybody can find at least one person in that book that they can relate to.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, Les Brown was born in an abandoned home in Miami, Florida. And, he was considered basically mentally retarded in school, and look at him now. He's one of the number one motivational speakers in the world.
That's what happens when you label people.
Johnny's got an older brother who's in prison for 40 years. He grew up, basically on the streets. And, he could have just as easily been in jail, too, if he had gotten caught. And so, you've no matter where you are, where you started, where you're going, the people in this book, you can learn from them. And so that's the strongest thing that you can take away from it, is to see, that you're not alone out there in your struggles, but also realizing that when you look at successful people, it's don't judge them by what you see, because it's like the iceberg. 90% of the iceberg is under the water. You can't see it. You don't know what all these people went through, and that's the really nice thing about this book is the celebrity authors on there, Les Brown, Johnny Wimbrey, Nick, they talk about their stories. And then all the other folks, like myself, who put our stories in there, we all start off as just average people. None of us were born with the Rockefeller money. Every one of them.
You worked on yourself. You had that vision.
Exactly. I mean, all three of those other folks on the cover are self-made millionaires, right? And so that is the thing of it, is you can look at it and then you can say, okay, you know what? I'm going to take ownership of where I'm at. And it's a great springboard for any of your listeners who are trying to figure out maybe just a first book to just kind of, if they don't really know where they're trying to go. Take a look at that, and it's a good way to kind of get into it. And then, from there, you can reach out to you or me, and I've got a slew of books and listening material for any of your listeners who are wanting to say, hey, how do I continue to get better?
Oh, yeah. And so can you give us just a little bit of a teaser as to what you talk about? Do you talk about the...
Yeah, so I talk about, kind of my upbringing. Went to 12 years of Catholic schooling, and so wearing khakis, polishing my shoes, I mean, it was kind of a good average middle class growing up. But my parents were not entrepreneurial, but I learned discipline from school, and but I always kind of had that hustle in me, and, just as far as that entrepreneurism. And then I talk about, the failure that I had in going through the bankruptcy, and then just the some of the mentors who I had listened to and studied throughout the years of rebuilding myself. And so a big part of my chapter in the book is actually giving credit to those folks who have helped transform me. And so, I take some philosophies from Les Brown, from Jim Rohn, from, a couple of those folks out there. We talk a little bit about Think and Grow Rich. And so a big part of my breakthrough was the steady, continuous self-improvement. And so if you want to really know some of the things that helped shape me to where I'm at, I give those secrets in my book if you want to read it.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
No, I'm for sure going to be reading it.
Yes.
So,
yes.
And I think this is just really cool. I remember somebody told me that all they read is just biographies because they just love the stories. And when you read enough stories, you start to relate to them, and you can connect and see how they work through that problem. And it kind of gives you a little bit of hope too, that I can do this too.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So I love that you're sharing this book with us, and that there's so many different authors and so many different stories in here. And so thank you for sharing this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if any of your listeners want to get a copy, I'm happy to eat the shipping and autograph it. No extra charge. It's $19.95. You can get it StephenPalmieri.com. That's Stephen with a V, Palm as in Michael, IERI.com. And then you can buy it on there. It'll come to me, and I'll put a nice friendly note, customize it, send it to you. And I'll eat the shipping as well for you.
Nice.
For your guests. Yeah. For your listeners.
I would take that up, y'all. I would definitely.
I'm not going to hand deliver it to everybody I did for you, though. So that's a special. That's a special delivery right there.
Sorry, everybody, but yeah.
That's right.
So, and in case you didn't get it, I will also be adding that to the show notes. So just feel free to click it.
Cool.
Get a copy of his book. So, any last remarks for our listeners out there?
Keep your vision strong. Keep your head right. And, because we're our own worst enemy. You had mentioned about breaking through walls, imaginary walls, not physical walls.
Yeah. We don't.
But it's all in the head. The head is a much more formidable enemy than the actual real enemies out there. One of the quotes that I mentioned in my book, which came from Les Brown quoted, it was an African proverb, and it says, if it wasn't for the enemy within, there would be no enemy at all. And so if you are here trying to figure out how do you get to where you go, figure out, okay, it comes from within you. And if you can get control over that, then you can get control over anything.
Oh, yeah. That's so true. Because I think our self-talk is, like you said, just, we have 60,000 thoughts a day
or something
like that. And so if you're thinking like 60,000 negative things to yourself, I mean, holy cow, you gotta change that system. But,
and think of how often we're told no. Our parents tell us no, society tells us no, teachers tell us no, other religious institutions tell us no, your doctors tell you no.
We tell no to the dogs.
Everybody tells you no. Who's going to start by telling you yes? And that's where listening to that audio comes in, because you have to start to counter all the no's that we've been told with yeses and you cans. You've got to really reprogram your mind and start to open up the channels, unlock the channels for the yeses to start to flow through. Because when we're born, the channels are all open, but every no that you get locks away a channel. And if you can get them reopened, then that's really going to open up a lot of opportunities to figure out, to let the answers start to come in that you're looking for.
All right. I love it. So thank you very much, Stephen, for being on the show today.
Thank you.
Thank you all for tuning in. And a couple quick announcements. Wow, it's like I'm at school. I have a couple quick announcements for y'all. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, guys. A Whole New World. New is GNEW. And follow us on Instagram. Like us on Facebook. And please share this podcast with others. We are trying to get the positive word out, trying to help people change their mindsets for the better. We want you guys to be successful, and so we just ask that you guys help us. It's free. Just click that little share button, and we greatly appreciate it. So Thank you, everybody, again for tuning in to another whole new episode with me. A whole new episode. A whole new world episode with me, your host, Jacob New. And as always, if you can only learn to do one thing, learn to make a difference. Y'all have a good week.